Of the Destin City Council on August 11, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. to order. First is we won't do an invocation tonight, but we will do the pledge. Ma'am, would you like to lead us?
All right.
All righty then. Up first, public comments, but I don't see any public here. Do we have anybody queued up online? Miss Catherine?
Now we're trying to get Councilman Wagner online.
Okay, well, you do that while we start this up. And if anybody comes in late, there'll be an opportunity for the public to make comments, either online via the web or if they show up here at the meeting. So first up, Ms. Crystal, you have the floor and will pretty much for the rest of the night.
Good evening, council members. So for this budget workshop in preparation, we sent around the detailed capital project packet. So in the beginning, it just shows a summary of the projects we'd like to accomplish over the next 5 years, and followed by the sources of funding that are going to pay for those projects for the next 5 years. So this is just the funded projects only on this packet this time. And then we also have in here detail pages that have a little synopsis about the project. And if we're going to spend money on it next year, there's a little synopsis about, what are we going to spend it on? Construction management, land acquisition, those types of expenditures in a little picture. And then we have at the back the fully detailed list. Thank you, Kevin Schmidt, for pointing out today that in the original packet that we sent out, it only had the renewal and replacement projects, I believe. And he noticed a lot of projects were missing, so we sent this updated packet around this afternoon. So this has all of the detail for all of the projects now. And the very last couple pages show some of the unfunded projects we have, and staff is continuing to work on that unfunded portion. When we have all of the unfunded projects identified, that helps staff put our fees appropriately. It helps our grants manager approach different grantors, and it also helps me think about the long-term financial picture for the city, how we're going to raise funds for those. So these are all important, but we're not going to go over any of this in detail unless you have specific questions about it. Also in your packet, you have the full picture. This is all of the budget. The first few pages are just the top level summaries, but as you get to the back, it's the extreme detail down to every little accounting line for printing and operating supplies. Yes. So I know some people love to get into the extreme detail. It also has some projections going out into the future and a little bit of the past. And then it shows our proposed budget for next year. This is the whole picture, all of the operating and all of the capital expenditures in this extreme detail. And last, in your packet, you would have tonight's slide presentation. I just want you to know that all of our directors worked really hard. There was a request recently to show more about what the individual departments are doing and to put a few little bullet points on why their individual budgets might be going up or down, as the case may be. So we have a lot more details on those tonight. That was also mostly informational, but there are a few of these slides in here that I'd like to really focus on tonight. So with that, I'm going to see if our little clicker here works. It does. So which, the slide presentation? Yeah, see, I have it as 3 separate files and didn't, hopefully, at least I put page numbers on everything. So if you see a page number down at the bottom of the document you're looking at, I'll be able to follow along with you. Good job. That's why we pay them the big bucks. So here's our budget process. We're approaching the end here. We've already confirmed our tentative millage rate with the county, and that's going to go out on or before August 24th on the trim notices to all of our citizens, along with the date and time for our first public hearing. Here's where we are on the timeline from the year. So this timeline shows January through December, so we're in the August timeframe. The next time that we meet and talk about budget, that will be at public hearing number 1, where we will adopt our tentative millage rate and the budget, pending any adjustments that we might make here tonight. It is a Thursday at 5:30 p.m. because Monday is Labor Day. Tuesday and Wednesday, Tuesday the county and the school district are having public, or I can't remember which one. One of those is having a public hearing, so we can't meet then. Wednesday there was another committee meeting overlapping, so we're going to meet here at Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Thursday, September 8th. So this, correct, to adopt the millage rate and the budget. 5:30, that's correct. So first, I just want to start with a few of the changes that we've made since the last workshop that we had. At the last workshop, we were going to go into the fund balance by about $100,000. I made a few changes to the budget, and now it looks like we're adding $200,000 to the fund balance instead. So the main change I made is we decreased the cost of living adjustment from 8.53% down to 5%. The next change we made was we moved the marina feasibility study, which was $75,000. We moved that out 1 year. We might want to bring it back. We'll talk about that at the end of the workshop when we get through some of these slides. We also we got our final rates for the insurance for our employees, health insurance, and all the others. So I put in the actual rates for every person that we have, and that actually decreased the overall estimate that I had put in the previous workshop. We also adjusted certain revenues. The Florida Office of Economic and Demographic Research, they come out with their numbers, like they know exactly how much they're going to give us each month for municipal sharing tax. They define what their best estimate is of half-cent sales tax that they're going to distribute to the cities and so forth. So along with best practices, I just use the numbers that they bring out to the public. So those increased our overall revenues by a little bit. And then the last change we made, our stormwater contracts. Right now, we have an agreement with the Choctawhatchee Bay Alliance to do an NPE, a National Pollutant Discharge application each year. That had been put down in the capital projects, but I had to bring that out. I was using a wrong funding source for that, and we're going to be using general fund money to pay for that application each year. It's about $30,000 a year. Yeah, I got really deep into certain ordinances over the past couple weeks. Thank you, Kim. So I'm just always making sure that if there's a restriction on a funding source, that we use it in accordance with the rules and the ordinances around them. So here's the big picture on the fund balance. So we ended fiscal year 21 with a fund balance, a total fund balance of all of our funds of $33 million, an unassigned fund balance of $11 million. This year, we're looking at ending $2 million higher in total, and this is mainly because we have not been able to become fully staffed, and we have a lot of projects that we were not able to accomplish this year. And we'll come back to some of those projects because I'm going to need to move them to next year. So we're going into next year ending with a really healthy fund balance again to start the year. And next year, we're also tentatively, at the end of next year, we may consider borrowing some money against some future revenue sources towards some of the big projects like undergrounding. But that's, we put it in the budget, but these are things that we're going to have to talk about in far more detail next summer to decide if, and we're going to look at the rates and how everything is doing to decide if that's the right time to go forward for financing to accomplish some of those projects. We might need to push those out to 2024, but we put it in here in case we are able to move forward as early as next fall. So just a couple words about fund balance. The general fund is the only one that truly has an unassigned fund balance. The reason you create other funds is only when you're given a revenue stream that comes with restrictions. So the reason all of those other funds exist is because a bond covenant said this is restricted to debt service, or an ordinance said this is restricted to growth necessitated infrastructure improvements, or the council said, we want to commit this Okaloosa half-penny money to stormwater and undergrounding. So those are the reasons those other funds exist. So that's why when I bring the reports to you, I always have highlighted the general fund unassigned, because that's the money that you can really move around and do different projects with. The other money has already been committed, or we've written promises against it in some way or another. Oh. Ah, there it is. So this is the general fund balance. Let's see. And these are some of the things that will affect your general fund balance. You'll have an increase in your unassigned fund balance when something happens. For example, we just had that property pay a lien off. So that was $282,000 of unanticipated revenue. It wasn't budgeted, so it just falls immediately into that general fund unassigned fund balance. When you budget to fill positions within the city, that's another source of unassigned fund balance, because at the end of the year, we didn't spend the money, so that money just stays in the general fund unspent, so it falls into the unassigned fund balance. Some things that decrease the unassigned general fund balance are when we make a resolution to commit it. So we're pulling it out of the general fund, it's now committed, like the parking fund. We said parking fees, no longer in the general fund, we're going to take them out and we're just going to use them for parking related issues. The building fund was another one. The state of Florida said, okay, you need to pull all those permit fee revenues out and track them against the expenses you have to have a building official and building inspectors, and they have to fund themselves. So some of these are from us, some from the state. Another thing would be if our revenue was lower than anticipated, then that would dip into the existing fund balance, or if expenditures were higher than anticipated. But we're all pretty much very budget aware, and we have all kinds of systems in place. So we have to come to council first before we can spend money that's not budgeted. So that was just a little spiel about the budget. So here's the big picture of the proposed budget. This is all of the budget combined, the operating and the capital projects all combined. So as you can see, most of this pie for the city of Destin, that's all culture and recreation. It's mostly parks. Let's see if I can get the little... Oh, no, that's not it. The top button is the... Okay, there it is. We get that little... There we go. Yeah, so here, this is all Parks and Recreation budget. So we're looking at almost a $73 million budget for next year. And it's based on the expenditures that we're going to approve. A big part of that is the potential beach projects that we're going to work on with Okaloosa County. I believe the interlocal agreement for that, is that coming at the next?
It'll be Monday.
It'll be Monday.
Yep.
So we'll go into more detail on that soon. Come on, top button. There we go. The physical environment, that's our stormwater. We're going to be investing a lot of the American Rescue Plan Act into stormwater projects this coming year. Transportation, so this is roads, sidewalks, streetlights. So that includes the Crosstown Connector project that we're working on. Public safety, a nice little sliver, and then general government, as you can see, is kind of a small piece of the overall pie. And here's what it looks like when you look at only the operating costs. General government, public safety, that includes our sheriff's office contract, and it includes the building department, the building officials keeping us safe, and the emergency management program. Debt service, culture and recreation, that's the bulk of the staff for the city. And transportation, which includes median maintenance. And then here's what it looks like with just the capital projects. As you can see, the biggest capital projects we're doing are related to our parks. And then the next largest that we're doing is related to physical environment, that's the stormwater. And then transportation, that's our road renewal and replacement program for the most part. And then also the Crosstown Connector project. So there are a few slides in here that just show in different ways. This is some people like the pie chart, some people like to see all of the numbers. So we've got all the numbers in here by major governmental activity. So FY23, you can see that we're adding $3.4 million into the fund balance just when we get to that's the revenues minus the expenditures for FY23. Some of that $3.5 million goes into, it's going to be transferred out to some major capital projects, some of it, but let's see, we've got that coming up next. So here's the general fund expenditures, looking at it in a different way, salaries, benefits, contracts. So you can see you can see where most of the changes are in the general fund. It's mostly coming from the benefits, the 28% increase in benefits, 11% in salaries, and then operations looks like it's increasing at about 18%. And here's what the general fund expenditures look like in a pie chart format, the operations, contracts, benefits, salaries, and so forth. So as personnel, benefits and personnel is our largest expense. I thought I would just pause here a little bit because there's been a lot of discussion, and I just wanted to hear from the council members your thoughts on this. What we have currently in here, we've proposed a 5% cost of living increase. Oh, darn it, I keep hitting the down button, and I should be hitting the next arrow. So this is the cost of living, March, April, May, June. Some of you may have heard in the news that it's starting to come back down again. But this was the trend for the summer. There we go. But this is where we're standing right now. So the current budget that we have, we're proposing a 5% cost of living, 2% merit. The health insurance was the one that increased the most. They increased by 23%. We have the stormwater management position that we decided to not fund that position this coming year, and instead we're going to use the balance of that to fund two other positions. One would be the junior, what I'm calling a junior engineer, so another version of Mr. Bodie. And the second is a stormwater maintenance tech. In addition, finance and the public information officer, we've both requested interns. I'd like to do a 12-week or a 16-week summer internship during the summer break for the colleges. We had two more full-time wish list positions that were not budgeted. One was a facilities maintenance tech and one was a parks maintenance tech. And Webb has an update on exactly what we are recruiting, because we've had a lot of change over the past 10 days since I issued this presentation again. So Webb, would you just give them an update on where we are in the staffing?
Thank you, Crystal. As we stand today, that number is actually 11 full-time vacancies and 3 part-time vacancies. And this number will change in 2 weeks. It's a snapshot in time. But that's where we stand. Our HR manager's been working very hard to fill positions and has been able to recruit some folks. That number is at 11 full-time and 3 part-time. Thank you.
We have a HR manager fill-in, correct? Is that, because we lost our permanent one, which she had her baby, she didn't come back. So we had our one that retired that's filling that spot right now?
That is correct. We do have an interim HR manager that has been on staff now for the last 3 months, and she is continuing to help us on that, but we are actively recruiting both HR positions right now and are interviewing for that.
With that, I just wanted to hear council, have a little discussion. This is a chance for you two to discuss amongst yourselves your vision of what you'd like to see adopted for this coming year and your thoughts on what we've proposed here with the 5% cost of living.
Anyone want to make any comments? Go ahead. I mean, y'all don't have to.
Well, no, I mean,
But if you do, that, I mean, she's seeking comments before we go to our true meeting where we're
Yeah.
actually going to vote.
yeah, and I gave them my comments at my meeting with all the staff, so it shouldn't be a surprise. Here's my issue, I guess. We brought everybody up in April, okay? We gave, I think the highest increase was like 46 or 47%. We gave some person less than 1%. But we gave 79 staff members increases in April. And the average of all those 79 that got increases, and some of the managers or all the managers didn't get increases, but the average was 18.16% increase. So I feel we made everybody whole in April. So we shouldn't be going off what is, and I know our methodology, our stated methodology is we take June of this year over June of last year, and that's what we recommend. But June of last year is irrelevant because we were at 0 basically in April. So, since April to June, if we just do that, it's been a 2.49% increase in inflation. Now, it's going up, it's going down. We're still going to have inflation this time next year. I get that. It's going to be there. So, and I agree that the staff should get some COLA, but they shouldn't get a whole year's worth. So I'm happy with 2.5. I might even be happy with 3% for a COLA, and then 2% for merit. But to say a 5% COLA on top of the 18.16% increase that they got through April, some of them got, the average got, through April, just doesn't make financial sense to me as we're trying to make all the dollars fit in the little buckets. And so, and I told the staff, I said, I think 5% is too much for a COLA. I'd be happy with 2 and 2, or maybe 3 and 2. But I just think 5% for the COLA portion. And then we had a discussion about, well, some cities are not going or getting rid of their merit-based raises. And I said, that's good. I'm not a supporter of that. But if that's what the council wants to do, I always think you have a merit component because you reinforce good behavior and you extinguish bad behavior. And if somebody is just kind of hanging around to hang around, you don't get a merit increase. I mean, bless you, you've been here for 40 years. We really appreciate you. You got institutional knowledge, but we reward performance. So I have not changed my position since the three of us sat down. I think 5% COLA is too high, and when we bring it up, I'll probably make a motion to make it less, and I'll probably get voted down, but I just think 5% is too high, and my reasoning is we should look back to April when we had everybody whole. And maybe they weren't completely whole in April, maybe they were only 99% or 95%. And that's why we talked about having a dichotomy, I guess, of the staff who did get raises, the 79 that did get raises in April, and the managers who did not get raises in April, and maybe adding something to that. But I just think 5% is too high. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, thank you, Jim, for sharing your thoughts with us. Ms. Abear?
Thank you, Mayor. I disagree with Mr. Bagby. I feel like the city of Destin, we're struggling to keep people we've already got. We didn't give them a big pay raise. We matched what they should have been getting years, and we just didn't have our pay for our employees where we should have been. We did the study to make sure we matched the likable cities with what we're currently getting. I think 5%, I was going to vote 8%. I would say go with what's going on. I mean, food, gas, I mean, people have to drive here. Most of them can't live in Destin. So I agree 5%. I would even agree in something more than 5%, but I think the 2% sort of ought to merit repays those those that are really doing a good job, that are stepping up and doing and earning what we're paying them, plus giving extra. And I feel like we need to maintain our staff, and we're struggling to get people to come to Destin to work already. And I think what we're offering and what we're proposing is very fair, and I wouldn't change the 5%, and I won't vote to change it.
Mr. Braden?
Well, thank you. I agree. I think our staff is, I don't know if you want to call it cheated, shorted, shortchanged, whatever, for many years, I believe. And they finally brought up to speed. And correct me if I'm wrong, but a guy making $15 an hour with 5%, he's going to get a 75-cent increase. At 3%, he's getting a 45 cents increase. I mean, when you put it like that, that's chump change, really. And we got 11 full-time positions that we can't fill, a bunch of part-times because we're so underpaid to start with. But now we brought them up to speed where they should be, and now we're going to try to cheat them out of 2 or 3%, 15, 20 cents. That's just something I can't do. So I would like to stick with the 5% myself. Just my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. My turn. Just based off of what you started, Mr. Bagby, talking about the starting point was in April. All that did was be the starting point. We're talking about our 2023 budget here, and that the 5% cost of living is based for the employees getting paid 2023. So I think that is more than fair. If we didn't have 11 full-time positions that are still unfilled and 3 part-time now, we didn't give our managers a raise. There's always been an adage around here, and it's maybe why our pay scale was what it was, but we always used to use the term the cost of living in paradise, because it's a great place to live. You had a lot of retirees, a lot of military guys retiring at the age of 35 or 38 years old, already drawing retirement pay, and so they would work cheap. They'd work for less. Skilled, very highly trained and skilled people. And then you had the people that they wanted to live here at the beach at all cost. And so maybe some of that culture got into our city as well. And I think we've made a robust attempt since I've been mayor to not just improve the situation and the lives of the employees of the city, but to improve the lives of everybody that lives in our city. Well, it starts with customer service and being able to provide the services they expect from the city. And as we know in today's world, any of us that are in business, how hard it is to find any employees, regardless of what you pay them. So I think the ones that work for us, we should treat them fairly. I think our managers do a good job of incorporating the human aspect of that by making them feel responsible, part of a team, good working environment. But part of that good working environment, and we all know because we all have worked for a living or run our own businesses, show me the money. You know, I know you can tell me you appreciate me, but there's another way you have to show that appreciation, just outside of patting me on the back and telling me what a great job I did today. So that's my thoughts around there. To change our projections that we've come up with up to this point sends a really bad message, in my opinion. Mr. Smith.
Appreciate it. Crystal, if I look at number 3 versus tonight, and when we look at the salaries number, when that changed, is that because of the COLA change? Or is there other factors that are contributed in that?
One of the changes we made is in the budget, number 3, we did not have our 2 wish list people, the junior
Okay.
engineer and the stormwater, so we added those
Right, but like
back in because
5.9 at budget workshop 3 and 5.6 at budget workshop 4.
Right, and I went through with the HR manager in detail, and we've had a lot of changeover this summer.
Right.
So I made sure that we had exactly their most current rates, so this.
So where does the COLA change from 4 to 3 get reflected? Would that be reflected in there as well?
Yes, absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the COLA on the workshop number 3, we still had it at 8.53. And then this one, it shows it at 5, and
So-
that's under salaries, not in.
Right, so
Okay.
when we see approximately $300,000 or $250,000, most of that's made up of the COLA change from this last one to this one.
That's correct.
Plus a couple of these random positions.
Correct.
But, okay. I mean, I don't disagree with some of the things that Mr. Bagby's saying and the reasoning and the calculations, but I also agree with others that, you know, we did the salary study and all that stuff. We got them where, you know, I think maybe Brownie just said where they should be, but it's not where they should be. I mean, because I feel like they should still be higher. So it's where they are on par with the study. It's what the study said they should, median or whatever the heck the term was. But, you know, ultimately, we have underpaid staff from the bottom to the top. You know, you look at positions, high positions that have been requested or interviewed for, we've given offers, they say no because they want more money. We give them another offer, they want more money. You know, we have people declining job offers because of the salaries. You know, we don't pay enough. We just simply don't pay enough. So I'd put the COLA back up to where it was originally. Just if that's going to get their salaries higher, we got to be competitive, more competitive than we have been in the past. We got to continue to push their salaries up, whatever we have to do that. We need to keep the employees that we have because they know that they're not going to get paid elsewhere or they're going to get paid here. And we also need to attract the employees to come here as well. And to do that, we got to pay them more. So I don't want the 5%. I want it back up higher to get the salaries up. And if it's a $200,000 to $300,000 difference, I can gladly find, and I will show you here shortly, where I can find $200,000 to $300,000 on budget items to put into the salaries. And I bet the personnel would rather have that than some of the projects that are listed here. So, but just my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Destin. And then, Mr. Bagby, we'll wind it up with you so you can refute some of the comments. See, now, you've been under the gun for the last 4 speakers.
Crystal, I didn't dig through to find, how much do we have for resurfacing in the budget this year
For resurfacing,
of streets?
street resurfacing,
Money
Just-
we're not
just
gonna
one
spend
second.
'cause we can't get it. We can't get asphalt.
Because it ain't going to happen, right?
I just-
We believe it's about
three.
1.1.
yeah, you mean for FY '22, this current
I
fiscal
mean,
year, or for
our
next year?
coming budget year.
For next year, we usually budget the 200, let's see, no, it's $540,000 of the gas tax, number 1, and the general fund adds another $500,000. So it runs about $1 million a year.
About $1 million.
Michael, could you answer that question for Mr. Destin of what we're not going to spend because we can't get aggregate?
Crystal would be able to answer this better, but I think, don't hold me to it, but I think there's somewhere right around $400,000 left that we don't have encumbered thus far.
Well, we don't have it encumbered because we can't buy it. That doesn't mean the need to do it disappears. It just rolls into next year.
That's
So I don't
correct.
see that as real relevant. And the point, you know, I see both sides of this COLA and salary argument, and I wish we could give folks a 50% COLA. I really do, but we don't have that money. And so at some point, we have to come to a conclusion of what we can afford. And in light of the increases that we gave earlier in the year, I'm trending toward Mr. Bagby's position to cut back on the COLA a little bit, because all of our expenses are going up pretty dramatically, and we don't know what else is going to be coming down the pike. And I do know one thing: we're required to have a balanced budget by law. And so if we spend too much, the only alternative we have is to raise taxes or dramatically cut back on some other kind of expense. My solution that I discussed with Crystal and the staff to try to allay some of the fears I have of where we're headed in this year and perhaps next year was to delay filling some of the positions that we have on board, and we talked about delaying maybe 10 of the positions to next spring to see how we're going to come out. That would be a pretty substantial amount of cushion or reserve or protection or whatever you want to call it against the unforeseen things that may be happening in our economy, in our budget. And
Spoken like a true restaurateur, has to go through 5 months of zero income
Yeah.
and losses.
that's it. And I understand what happens when you spend more than you take in. In business, we go bankrupt.
Yes.
In government, we raise taxes. And those are the folks that we're supposed to be representing up here. We can only do that so much. So, as we come to the budget process where we make motions, we'll see how it turns out. But my trend is to trim a little bit and to be grateful that we have been able to raise the salaries to the point we have, but to be careful and to be a prudent steward of the public's money.
On that very thought, is what you got up here on this slide, is it funded in your budget?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And with this being funded and funding all of the capital projects, when we get to that list, we're still adding $200,000 to the fund balance this next year. And by the way, this year I'm projecting that we're adding $2 million to our fund balance this year because of, as I mentioned, the positions that have gone unfilled for most of the year and the projects that we were not able to get to because we didn't have enough staff.
And this is on the public record, so this proposal right here is not like putting us on razor's edge to accomplish the personnel aspect of our budget. I'm just making mention of that because of, you spoke about your concerns, and I wanted to find out from our finance director if she would have those same concerns about a budget shortfall to cover not only the personnel we have, but if we can fill all these positions. So I just wanted to get that out there.
So that amount of money that we are fortunate enough to push forward into fund balance because we didn't spend it, that won't be there the next time because we will have spent it. So, this is, it's kind of like what's behind curtain number 3. It depends on how you want to look at all of these numbers and the trends, the way we're going.
But don't you also take into consideration the unfilled positions that will continue to be unfilled positions that are being budgeted for? And if we do have a $200,000+ addition to our fund balance, if we were to take that and make it just at net zero or just a zero, we're going to potentially have a surplus just from unfilled positions. And we give them the additional higher COLA and increase because we have the additional fund balance and we're going to have unfilled positions, so. Well, I understand that, but
Has this city that you've been associated with it ever been 100% man, ever?
That we have been a little ambitious on how many people we want to hire each and every year. And perhaps, as you do in many government funding, you bubble up because if you don't spend it this year, you won't have it next year.
Yeah, it's called end of the fiscal year. Go ahead, Mr. Bagby. We'll wrap up
So-
this portion and let her continue the rest of her presentation.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
I don't disagree with anything that's been said. I'd like to give them 50% COLA too, I really would. I think I've probably been one of the best staff supporters in the 9+ years I've been on this council. I have always fought to help the staff. But the reality of it is, and I'll just cover a couple of points, vacant positions. In the last 10 months, what is the maximum number of full-time and part-time vacant positions that we had? Because 6 months ago, we had a huge number. What was that number?
I track labor hours year over year, budgeted labor hours compared to what's actually the labor hours we've paid. And the city of Destin for the last 3 years has been running at about 80%.
So 20% of our how many hundred and whatever positions?
122 total positions, which
So-
includes all the part-time.
Yeah, so we're down to 11 and 3. I would, and we can probably, do a survey and ask all the new hires, but I would tell you, the increase that we did in April probably contributed to us filling a lot of those vacant positions, okay? Because we're paying a competitive rate. So, but I can ask the city manager and I want to know what's the highest number of vacancies we've had in the last 10 months. I know we don't have the HR person, well, we don't have an HR person, but, yeah, Lance is in charge of HR this week, so what is that? Because now we're down to 11 and 3. My memory is it was like 3 times that amount. 6 months ago or 8 months ago. So to say, we got to do, no, we're on the right track. We're competitive. And so the position vacancies, I don't get really excited about 11 and 3. That's probably as small as we've ever been with this number of staff. Now, when we were a smaller city staff, we may have had fewer. The benefits, and let's remember, because I look at the entire, as we all do, the entire picture, okay? The benefits cost almost 40% of our salaries, okay? I don't know what y'all do in y'all's business, but I can tell you in my business, my 16 folks don't get anywhere near 40%, even if they fully contributed to their IRA, which only a few of them do, and we matched it, it wouldn't be close to 40%. So I feel comfortable, and maybe it's just my perspective, but I feel comfortable that we're offering competitive salaries, as evidenced by the number of vacant positions decreasing. We're definitely offering competitive benefits, which has always been kind of our main draw, is more than the salaries was, hey, you get the benefits. On the COLA, we have a written policy, I believe it's written policy that says we go from last June to this June so that when we can start doing the projection we don't guess what CPI is going to be for 2023. We say this is our policy. We evaluate the last 12 months, and whatever it is, that's what the staff brings to us. And because it's always been a delayed process, but the numbers, work out if you do the same process every year. So it's not, well, we need to give them 8% because it's going to cost more in 2023. Yeah, it is. It always costs more. But we have a policy, we have a process. I would just say my thing with the process this year is we kind of interrupted it in April. And we short-circuited it. And I want to give the staff a raise. I want to treat them fair. I want them to be rewarded for their work. But I also want to be a good steward of the cities, because to give them money, we have to take money from our citizens. And so I want to be fair to them too, and I think we all do. It's a balancing act, and I think we all want to be fair. I think we all want to reward the staff. I just have a perspective that, from a numbers perspective, we gave them a huge increase. We brought them to where they're competitive. We're filling positions. We're going to fill more positions. And we should give them something. I just don't think that that's up to 7% per person, which is what 2% merit and 5% COLA is. That's just
Thank you,
my
Thank you, Jim.
Jim, if we would have given them, I just had a follow-up questions for him, if that's okay.
Go ahead, Lance is
Oh,
next.
okay.
Go ahead, Kevin, you're on.
If we were to give them this increase, or the rates that we increased them to back in April would have happened 12 months ago. Just because we should have had them competitive 12 months ago, let's just say. We wouldn't be, I don't think we'd be having this discussion right now. We would be doing it based off the policy. So I feel like we raised the rate, their salaries to make them competitive. That shouldn't come into play with now what the COLA adjustment should be, in my opinion, because they should have been getting paid that number a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. But it's just taken us this long to get them to a competitive rate. So I don't know why. It's not like we gave them a raise and now we're only giving them a half raise. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me to use that, thought.
Yeah.
But, and you also say that if we're going to give them money, we got to take it from our constituents. I must be missing something, though.
Yeah.
I might be missing something, though, because, one, we have a $200,000 additional fund. So if we were just to say, let's just put $200,000 back into salaries, where are we taking that from our citizens if we were to just put it back in there? Well, I might be missing.
Every penny we spend in this city comes from our citizens.
Sure.
Okay, every single penny.
And the goal
Whether
of
they
the
pay a
budget.
state sales tax or a local option sales tax, or, whether they pay ad valorem taxes, it all comes from them. Gas taxes, user fee, we're going to talk about waste management. Yeah, we're going to give them 2% or 8% or whatever it's going to end up being. Guess what? All waste management does is put that on our bill and send it back to the city. So every penny we spend,
Sure.
we have to understand that it comes from there.
Sure.
What I think you're asking is the effective date. You're right. If we had brought them up to competitive level on 1 October of last year, we would have used the June to June but guess what? They wouldn't have averaged 18.16% raise the study wouldn't have said that. The study would have said 16% or whatever the study would have said. So they would have gotten a smaller raise effective 1 October of last year, okay, to make them competitive of 1 October last year. When the study was finally published, it brought them to competitiveness on 1 April.
Right. I
Okay,
agree.
so there's just an effective date. So, I don't disagree with any of your logic or what you said.
Sure.
I just say, you're right. If we would start it, we would have used our written policy. Now, why they didn't get raises for 3 or 4 years, I don't know. I wasn't here. I apologize, and I wasn't paying attention. But I'm paying attention now, and, I want to be fair. I think everybody up here wants to be fair, but I want to be fair to the people supporting this and the people that are supporting this staff. And so, my feelings aren't going to be hurt on Monday or Tuesday or whenever we vote on this thing or whenever it comes up. It's just going to be, I disagree with 5%. I'm going to make a motion. I may not get a second. I won't cry, I'll be happy for the staff, but I just don't think it's fair to the city.
Mr. City Manager, your turn.
Oh, thank you, sir. I just wanted to make sure you saw that
Bobby's
Mr.
up.
Wagner was up. He
Yep.
wanted to make a comment.
Yep, I saw that his hand was raised.
Oh.
So go ahead, Bobby.
Awesome. Well, hello from Hollywood, Florida down here. So some questions from the COLA and the merit. Is there any verbiage in our rules or the state rules that say we couldn't even potentially flip them? And then my second question would be, does most people get that 2% merit? Is it a good bell curve? What does that look like? That might be a Lance question. What do most people get that 2% merit?
A large percentage of the staff do get the 2%.
Okay.
I wouldn't say we have a great bell curve on this.
Okay. And then with the COLA itself, is that something, I mean, if we're trying to go with be fair and we're trying to, have that balance, I mean, for me, flipping the two percentiles from COLA and merit, I think is a good compromise. It might, not everyone's going to get that 5%, but now we might have a better encouragement for people to go that extra mile and have that hospitality if it's 5 versus 2, and maybe there's a better reward, or there's a more pride behind getting 5 versus a 4, 3, 2, 1, where, a 2% merit, you're kind of at a 2, 1, 0. I'm sure there's some decimals in there in the grading, but I was just kind of throwing that out there as an idea, just listening from that aspect. Shut me down, open it up, conversation. I just wanted to get people's thoughts on that.
Anybody want to weigh in on those comments?
Yep.
Chris? Thank you, Bobby.
All right,
I'll
cool.
go on the, I believe and Mr. Destin will probably remember exactly, but I believe there have been some years where the COLA was less than the merit. And
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what the ratios were, and I don't even remember what the years were, because it's been a few years since I did that.
I was just
Gotcha.
wondering, what's our average COLA been over the last 5 years? Do we have any idea? What was it last year or the year before?
From my observations, it's been right around the 2.5%, but maybe Lance or Webb, you have a lot more history. This was my cursory review.
I can tell you, there were years way back when there were 5% raises for merit and 1 or 2% for COLA, because that's what COLA was running at.
So is an 8% COLA, which is what some of the council is advocating, that's a historically high COLA? Am I correct in saying that?
That's a high COLA.
And, okay, and plus the raise everybody got in April. Guess we'll get the vote on that.
Yep. Good
And then,
discussion note, and it's a
One
discussion
last thing,
needs
if
to
I
take
got the
place.
floor
That's what
still.
the whole purpose of the workshop is to get this out, get it on the public record, give the staff an idea what you all are thinking. So, I mean, it's okay for folks to have a difference of opinion. We'll make some motions, have discussion, and take some votes on Thursday. So that's what the workshop's all about. Go ahead, ma'am. You can go ahead and pick up where you left off.
Thank you. Yeah, just one point of clarification. Webb, the numbers that we applied April 1st, did those come from Evergreen in the December, January timeframe? So that was based on their research from last fall, just...
That is correct. I can't give you the exact date that all those numbers were established, but the study occurred from the approximately December through the January, February timeframe and was presented to council.
All right. Then what would be the most appropriate time to make a motion and vote on this?
Thursday.
Right.
Well,
Because
we'll do that
I need to
during
have
the first reading or
an
prior?
actual budget that potentially won't change. Certainly can't change upwards at public hearing number 1. And public hearing number 1 is scheduled before, it's the first thing that happens on September 8th. Is this
Maybe
something
start
that we
high and then we
add?
can always go down.
I know,
I mean,
right?
it sounds like that's what you gotta do, is what you're telling me.
So is this something that we would add to the, an walked-on item for this coming Monday? Or, because after that is the next time we meet is September 8th, which is at public hearing number 1, where we vote on the millage and the budget.
Yeah, I think you just need to move on, okay? Because the whole purpose of this workshop is Kevin's going to bring us and say, we need to defer these you've already told us, we're going to talk about deferring projects into '24, and that there's going to be money. Money's going to shift tonight 100 different ways, and we're not going to settle anything. You can get a feel for where we are, but, you know, he may have an idea to save 2 million, and he may have an idea to spend 2 million, and he may have an idea to save 100 million. You know, I don't,
I'll spend 100.
yeah, I know you will. See, that, but we don't have it.
Yeah, and the other reason is those publicized budgets and millage settings, those are publicized for a reason, so the public has notice. And if we make decisions prior to those, that's probably not quite the way the system's supposed to work.
Yeah, I have to publish the tentative budget several days before the, yes.
Don't change
I'm
it.
just saying, okay, so then is it common practice then, so even though we're going to go walk in and adopt a budget, it sounds like council would like us to bring back approval of the cost of living as an item for council approval. Lance, is that, no, we're just going to adopt the budget and, all right, or not done?
Otherwise, he can make that motion on next Thursday, or Thursday the 9th, 8th, whenever it is. And we'll vote, and, you know, that's why you have 2 hearings. So we make changes at the first one, and then we really adopt it at the second one.
Kim, got a question, seeing how that's what we're talking about. When we go through first reading and there are some motions made and votes made that change the proposed budget as it's publicly posted, is it just a rewrite with those, we take action on those motions, they rewrite it, and will it come back to a second reading at that point? Or are we back to first reading and we're 2 weeks behind?
No, you'll be at second reading.
Right, so we know the order of the action. So, and you know too, that you still stick with what you got, what you're presenting us tonight, and then whatever the pleasure of this council decides to do, picking it apart or making changes or whatever the thing is, we'll have discussion on each one of the motions and we'll vote on each one of the motions. And the end result will be the end result.
And that can also be changed at second reading. This is the one process where changing at first reading doesn't go back to first reading. So that's what makes your job such a fun job.
Right, and for clarification, the budget has changed multiple times over the past couple months, right? Yeah. And it's gonna change after we leave this meeting tonight, so to say that it's not changing, or to use what we have, it's gonna, it's changed from last one to this one.
This is the proposed
And
budget.
it's gonna change from tonight.
But she has to put on the.
But she has to put it on the site for public hearing purposes.
Correct. But aren't you gonna, when we leave here tomorrow, the next day, aren't you gonna continue to make tweaks, changes, or whatever?
No, not at this point.
Not unless you have some major capital projects that you want to bring forward or delay. Those would
But
be
you
the
could,
only.
though, right?
Those would be the only changes that I would make between now, because I don't have a chance to talk to you and get your thoughts on any future things. And I need to, so I'm going to take the notes from this meeting and to finalize something that I put up and for the public to see as the tentative budget.
When are you posting a tentative budget?
It has to be before, I believe it's a week before the first public hearing. So I'll be compiling it, and I have other jobs besides budget director. I wear a lot of hats. But yeah, I'll be compiling that and posting that up as quickly as I can.
So,
Has to be posted by the 30th, right?
Absolutely, yes.
so between now and then, if there's department heads or whatever that wants to change things, whatever,
There's one
before you
change.
post it, it
There's
can
going to
be
be, there's
changed,
one
right?
change that I'm going to propose to you this evening that I discussed with Michael Burgess earlier yesterday. But other than that, and when we get to the capital project side, but other than that, no.
Whose decision is it not to change it between now and when you post it?
I
Is that a
have,
city manager, like, policy decision, or?
no, it's just best practice
Sure.
to take the notes from the
Right.
budget workshops and incorporate any changes that were requested, and then post that. And this
So
is
how
the
do we
final
get-
budget workshop.
I hate to like beat the dead horse, but how did we get from 8-something COLA to 5 tonight? If a lot of,
I did. This
No, we
this
did. We
is
went-
5%.
right, but how did we get there? If-
Because at the last meeting, that's what was, Right,
It
it's
was-
consensus
That was a
of the group.
consensus of the group that night,
That was at the workshop.
at that workshop? I was there, budget workshop 3. I don't remember consensus being 5, but I imagine that also takes place with all your one-on-one meetings, with your discussions with senior leaders and staff and everything, right?
For the most
So-
part, it was just what came out in the notes from that
gotcha.
meeting.
Okay, good to know. Trying to understand the process.
I think when I worked with some individuals one-on-one, maybe one major thing or another may have been found and fixed, but other than that,
Okay.
You pretty much don't make any changes without our direction. So the
Correct.
notes you'll take today, our consensus of what you feel, you'll put that out, the public will see it, and then we'll have first reading. And at the first reading is when we'll either vote to change something or shift it for the second reading
That's
so that
correct.
it's different.
A-
Okay.
And throughout
Thank
the,
you.
yeah, and just a little bit more about the budget process. Throughout the year, sometimes we find, like the Noriega Point Road, we had budgeted because we thought the city was going to have to spend a lot of money on that road, but it turned out the developer came in and said, no, I've got this, we'll foot that bill. So during the year, you may have noticed in your packets when we proposed certain projects that didn't have enough budget, you may have seen a budget transfer in the back of that. So during the year, we do internal budget transfers. Every now and then, if a grant comes online, I'll bring forth a budget amendment. Our charter says that at the end of the year, I'm supposed to bring back a summarized consolidation of all of those changes in ordinance format. So we're going to be reading those ordinances. So you're going to see all the changes that happened during 2022 at the October meetings. We're going to read those. But throughout the year, you can make motions to do internal transfers or to amend the budgets. But it sure is nice, the closer we stick to that beautiful budget book that I published, all of the departments use it. I'm only one person, I can't be coding every little invoice and every little thing that comes through, so the
Crystal, what
closer
are
we
your
stick
other
to it-
hats?
What
What
am I-
other hats are you wearing? Are
well,
we not paying you enough?
No, I'm fine. I'm in this for the love of what it is, but everything related to finance, debt service. I'm teaching a new accountant right now how to do all of the accounting. I oversee right now, because we don't have in-house HR people, I make sure that the payrolls are all correctly coded and that nobody's getting $500 an hour, pay. So yeah, just anything that relates to any money coming in or leaving the city from all the departments,
And just an FYI.
and summarizing it. And
Of course, Jim, you know this, a budget is a budget. It's a living, breathing document that changes virtually daily. And that's why we have a finance manager to manage that budget to the best of her capabilities. So just to kind of answer your question, Kevin, it is going to change. And no matter what she produces in the document for the public, in the briefing document, we're all going to change it. So, let's just stick with what she's got. And then you guys that have issues with particular things, then you can, at the first reading, after hearing from the public, then we'll make those motions and those changes or discussions, and we'll vote on each one of those. And then once we do that, then she'll go back and adjust the budget she'll take action on all the actions that we do at the first hearing.
That's correct.
And then when we come back for the second hearing, we may
Yes.
do some of the stuff again because people change their mind up here or something happened out there. And so I just want to get that out there,
Right.
Kevin, because you said you wanted to understand the process.
Right.
That's the process.
And also, each time we bring one of those projects to you where we have that budget transfer that's recommended and you approve that in motion format or through the consent agenda, every month when I bring you the financial statements, that column that says budget has a little star next to it because it incorporated whatever you made that motion to change it. That's the new current budget at that time. Just so we update that in the system so all the staff can.
And that's been the
can be working
biggest
from the current
difference with you as our
budget.
finance manager, is that we can track everything that we do and how it affects you and our budget. And I appreciate that a lot because it does make life simpler.
This actually relates to a Monday night issue, but on the COLA, everybody gets the same COLA, right? To include the city manager?
The city manager is in there. In the
Okay.
cost of living, right, Lance? You've traditionally always
So-
received the
so
COLA,
when he
just not the
gets-
merits.
When he gets, so really the only thing we do is, that in our evaluation, is do his merit.
That's correct. So the merit increases happen upon your work anniversary date, but the COLA is just applied across the board on October 1st as a payroll function. Okay, let's see if this will work for me now. Okay, I'm live again, so here again, cost of living for the last few months, March, April, May, June. And I'm just going to skip ahead because we spent a lot of time on that item. So all of these slides, it shows the recap for the general governmental activity with all of the departments underneath, and then each department, they took time. This is the change to their particular budget, and a few points underneath on why it's changing. So yeah, my big thing is we've got tax exempt bonds, so I need someone to help me do an arbitrage report. So we just go through quickly each of the, and then here's public safety with the 3 different departments under there. Physical environment includes the cemetery. This is the state of Florida that sets the, how we report, so we're all doing the same thing. As a matter of fact, I think they take it from the nationwide. Transportation, public works engineering, median maintenance. We have 2 other funds, economic development and human health services. Culture and recreation is the largest, where we spend most of our money, and that's where most of our staff work.
Crystal, where would the fire department that we give them go under in one of these?
That's under public safety. It's the first department called public safety. So we've got the lifeguard contract with the fire department and the sheriff's office contract under there. And then we also have some crossing guards in there.
Perfect. So with the lifeguards, I wanted to bring this up. I talked to Chief Sasser, and they're having an issue where the county has increased the pay rate for their lifeguards, and to keep up, just like we are, our fire department has raised their employee rates as well to match to keep their people happy. The TDC is not going to increase their dollar amount, so I think that's something that we're going to need to discuss if we want to keep the same level of service and add more money into their budget as a city, or if we need to elect to take out 1 or 2 lifeguards to keep the same budget that we have normally given them in the past. I don't know if that's in the discussion tonight, but that's one of our chief's concerns at the fire department.
Bring that up Monday.
Will do.
Okay, so we'll continue moving forward through these. I hope you read every little point on each of these. Our department directors worked very hard on them. If you have questions about any of them, go ahead.
Well, because you made the point about reading them all, which I did, one of my questions at a later point is one of the bullet points on the parking fund slide that says consolidate cyber Zerby parking lots. I would love to know more about that project, because I haven't
So
found out
this
yet.
is one of the funding sources, but go ahead, Michael, you can talk about the Cybert Zerby parking.
Sure, thank you, Crystal. We have 2 paid parking areas down at the bottom of the hill below the community center, and there's a middle lot that is undeveloped. Currently, it's being used as a laydown yard for the median maintenance improvement project that FDOT is doing. As soon as that's done, our goal is to completely rehabilitate that entire area and make it a suitable parking lot with asphalt and curb stops and lighting and signage. So it'd be similar to the parking lots that we have at Marlar and at the community center.
Meaning turning in 3 separate parking lots into one large parking lot? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. There's the plans that we have a, I guess it's on the east side, right behind the community center, kind of a connector, an umbilical that'll tie all 3 of those parking areas together. So you won't have 3 separate driveways going into 3 separate parking lots. It'll be one parking lot with one entrance and one exit.
Right, so to take 3 and turning it into one
Correct.
big parking lot.
Mhm.
Okay.
Is there a cost?
Do we have a,
Cost estimate on that?
We did before we had our asphalt issues. The last quote we got was right around, I want to say it was about $130,000, $140,000 to do that, because there's some grading involved. And our new engineer starts on Monday, so I'll have that new engineer run the stormwater calculations again for that new surface. But other than that, we will definitely get a new quote for that. But I believe, Crystal, the parking fund had 400,000 in it, something like that. So it's more than sufficient
Yeah,
to
actually, what we
complete that one
budgeted,
project.
what we budgeted for this was $150,000 for next year, and that's all parking fund money, which comes from the parking fees that council committed towards parking-related issues.
So has it been changed from 2 separate project numbers to just one for $150,000? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I just
There's just
double-checked, and
one
it is
150.
just that one funding source.
So that's changed, I guess, since a previous table?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well,
But it's 150 though, right?
That's correct.
Gotcha.
And all 150 is coming out of the parking fund.
Rodney?
Thank you. Looking through a lot of it, I didn't see any money for the Coche over at City Hall. And we were told that, I don't know, 5 years ago was in a 5-year plan to either fix it or replace it. Is that anywhere? Did I just-
Yeah, it was in the plan for this year, but it's been difficult to get to all of these projects. But Michael, do you have an update on the Port Coche, the City Hall?
Sure. We had, we just recently completed our facilities condition assessment, and that was one of the things they noted. They did give us an engineer's estimate of cost for replacing or repairing it. We did have a metal worker come by and take a look at it, because he was doing some other work for us on another job. What he recommended, and what we'll have to follow up and do, is get a structural engineer to take a look at it. And we'll probably have to do some boroscoping inside the members itself to see if, that corrosion is extended to the interior and how structurally sound it is. And then we'll make a decision to move forward at that point.
I mean, it'd just be my opinion on it, and you probably know as well, is that there's no repairing that once it starts rusting, and, so, I mean, I'd hate to fix it and go to all that expense. I'd just soon tear it down and build something that's not gonna rust and the concrete stuff, so.
We can certainly explore that as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Braden. Go ahead, Crystal. Go ahead.
I just wanted to be on the public record, that center lot of those 2 on Zerby, Seibert, that was a home that was in the middle of those. We purchased it, we basically leveled that. That land was bought for that parking purpose, and we just, once it got cleared, we started the median. So that's all been ours, just being sort of like delayed on getting it combined into one lot. Right.
That's correct. Let's continue on here. So we're at the parking fund, technology fund, Okaloosa half penny. Then we get into our general fund revenues. And you can see how much of our revenues come from the taxes. That's the really big, the biggest part of the pie. That's our ad valorem taxes right there. Licenses and permits. And intergovernmental revenues.
Crystal, I have a question. On licenses and permits, the change from 22 to 23 is down 1%. I just want to find out, is it because we have a lot of rogue operators that are not getting their permits and licensing, especially in some of those high areas that have a lot going on, like Holiday Isle. There's a lot of people that are just doing their upkeep and contractors coming in and not really pursuing the proper order of business. Would that contribute to the negative 1%?
Part of it, part of it is, we did this really big change over to Energov, the Energov system. When we did that, we lost certain functionality, in particular with our business tax receipt process. We're working through that, but the bottom line is, it just needs a much closer review. We probably need to update and change our schedule. Right now, our schedule has too many variables on it that we depend upon the citizens to give us before we can invoice them. But if we could simplify it, then it would be more automated. Invoices would go out to all the business holders, and then, and they would pay us. But right now, instead we're sending out postcards to all the business owners, so we're trying to improve that. But I would say, and we also, I think this past year was phenomenal. It was a phenomenon. It's not something that it would normally be repeated year over year, the amount of remodeling and additions that has happened. So I like to budget a little bit conservatively. I look at the 5-year trend, and I find a median in there. So, but yeah, we know there's a lot of room for improvement. The permitting process, I think we've issued, I don't have the exact number, but we've issued a lot more permits this year than we did in previous years, and that's also because of the Energov system. So it's made a lot of process improvements, and the more we can refine and improve upon that, I think we'll get more cooperation amongst the people who are doing it, but it still takes a bit long.
Webb, would you like to weigh in on that a little bit?
Yeah, and I just want to clarify a point of discussion there. It's not as much as losing functionality, it's just the transition to a new system. Basically, we had everything in the existing system, and then we need our new businesses. The businesses basically have to create their own account. So there was a change in the process, not as much as a loss in functionality within going to the new program. Just a point of clarification.
Yeah, we all read the email from the guy that was complaining about the new Energov thing, and I got on there and filed my own permits for my generator. I just hooked up, and I'm a IT Neanderthal, and I didn't have any problem getting on there and setting up my account. So I had to take those kind of complaints a little bit with a grain of salt, because it wasn't that hard. Go ahead.
Question, on the budget estimates, this is before the new study on permitting fees and associated, right? So
That's correct. We don't have the results. That study is going on right now, and we should be meeting to discuss the study results, I believe this month, by the next half of this month. That's coming up soon. So this is budgeted without knowing any of those study results yet.
Yeah, okay, because our written policy says it'll pay for itself. We've never followed that, but that's what our written policy says.
And the state statute says that building permits in particular must cover the building officials.
Okay, Chris, I got a comment from Mr. Smith. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry, just to go back because my eyes are hurting and it's black and white instead of color this time. But TR 619 and TR 622, those are the two projects I had questions on in our individual meetings and Michael just answered one of them, TR 619 for $150,000. But then we're going to take the Cyber parking lot and pave and improve it and add kiosk and apps for $250,000 for a total of $400,000 for Cyber and Zerby lot. So can we get clarification on the second project? It says general parking improvements, Cyber. $200,000 for Cyber parking lot pave/improve. $50,000 parking kiosk / new app. $250,000 this year and $100,000 next year, 23 and 24. So for that parking lot, it's $400,000 for fiscal year 23.
Yeah, we're looking at some potential improvements for the system.
Right, but we're going to consolidate three into one for $150,000. So what are we doing for $250,000 or $200,000 on top of that?
I'm going to have to dive off into that. I know that there's some
But that was the
technology.
question I had in our individual meeting, and that I was still trying to wait to get clarification on, and I guess could that change from after we leave here tonight? $250,000? That could change, right? I mean, I don't know.
Was it the kiosk implementation system itself and having each spot being tagged and remarked
Part
as
of it.
far?
We certainly have some technology plugged in that we have not been able to get to this year with our vacancy. However, I can't explain in detail. I'm going to have to dive back off into that.
Sure.
It's not 200,000. I don't recall that much being in there.
I mean, the project request form says type of maintenance activities include repaving, restriping, and potentially other projects to reduce parking issues throughout the city, so.
Could that be
It's-
citywide?
Not when it says cyber.
We'll dive off into that and we'll have an answer for you.
So what happens like with this particular item like that?
So the way that these were set up, I don't have the TR 619 is specific to the Zerby consolidation. TR 622 is all of our paid parking facilities. And
Citywide, not just a
resurfacing,
cyber?
restriping, new curb stops, signage, lighting, all that.
Includes Crystal Beach, the whole 9 yards, right?
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
So would you just say it's a clerical error that it says cyber like 3 different times on this particular project request? Which I understand, we're all human, we make errors, but it's quite a lot of money.
Okay.
I've asked about it 3 or 4
I
different
was
times.
looking at a
now.
different page, but on page 27, that's where it discusses the 619 project. No, not 619, 622. But Crystal's finding the other one here.
It was a good question because we got the deer in headlights look. It's one we can answer and clarify because it's going to be in the briefing document. So it's a good question. And we'll
Might
get
just
it.
be a.
Looks like we'll get an answer. Yeah. that's
Yeah,
what it's
we're going to have to do a little bit of a deeper dive into that because what you're seeing is the justification comments. We're going to have to go back and take a look at that.
And I understand that, and I'll just share some frustration that this has been asked and discussed at least 2 or 3 times, and here we are at the last budget workshop meeting, still needing further clarification. So I'm just a little frustrated about that. I just want to share.
No, I'm trying to figure out, because one is Cybert Zerby, right, 619 specifically. And then the other, it says, other projects to reduce parking issues throughout the city. It doesn't mention Cybert Zerby in there on 622 at all.
I'm just looking at the funded table.
Counselor Bagby, that's on page 55. It's in a table.
You're correct.
It is
You're
the
correct
comments
with what
on
you're saying,
a
Jim.
row.
But I'm just looking at the table.
Okay.
Yeah, so Councilman
Because you
Schmidt
can
is
read the
is looking at the detailed table here.
Yeah.
The comment on the side, the full comment isn't shown here, but each of the 2 different projects were
Yeah.
described in more detail on each
Yeah.
page. And as Michael said, the parking fund, and I'm holding them upside down, isn't that helpful? But as Michael said, the TR 619 project is specific to the Zerby, consolidating the Zerby Cybert, the 3 spaces into 1 large parking lot. But the TR 622 is for parking improvements for all of the parking, for all of the
city.
parking lots throughout the
So
city.
that is the final answer.
Yeah,
It
and the
is-
bottom line, both of these are using parking fund money, which is
Right,
restricted to
restricted.
only, we
Sure.
can't use it on salaries or anything else. It's restricted only to parking-related
Right.
improvements.
So then there isn't any more clarification needed. It's a parking, it's for the all parking lots, like you said.
I think what we'll have to do is amend that table on page 55 just to be a little bit more clear.
But your intentions of that project is for all city parking lots.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay. Appreciate it.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Moving right along. I'm just going to pause here just for a second. So, again, this is just a recap of the net increase to the fund balance before we get to the capital projects. And I'm showing that our unassigned fund balance is very healthy. We're projecting right now $12 million, nearly 13. And so this is where we were proposing what to do with that $1.9 million addition to fund balance after all of our operating expenditures are covered. So here is the list of the capital projects that were being dependent upon the general fund revenues that are, after all the operating expenses are covered. And staff had one additional item. So this is where you could talk about some of the unfunded or underfunded projects. As you can see from this list, based on the discussions from the last meeting, I moved the city marina feasibility study. I moved that out 1 year to 2024. But as you can see here, we're still, even with spending on these projects, we're still adding just over $200,000 to our fund balance. So maybe we want to pull that back in. We just need direction from council if we want to move forward on doing that feasibility study. We need a business consultant to come in and look at their books, look at their history, and just make sure that would all work for us, and also to figure out a financing plan for it. I have some ideas, but would love a second brain or two to mull that over. The other thing that we have that I discussed with Michael the other day, we really wanted to put in some restrooms at Buck Destin Park this summer. We've had a few delays, and Michael found a great quote on a group called Sourcewell. So when somebody else in the state does a procurement, you can piggyback off of somebody else's procurement process. But then he went out and he found an even better quote from another entity that was not in a contract that we could piggyback upon. So he'd really like to go and do a full RFP because he thinks he could cut the cost of that project by, what, $50,000, $70,000, Michael? The bottom line is, we think it's going to cost about $200,000 to put in these bathrooms at the Buck Destin Park. This year, we only budgeted $135,000. But given the timing, well, I was thinking, well, maybe we can come back to council and ask to use some of that money we just received from that lien payoff to supplement the budget to accomplish those bathrooms. But we don't think we can accomplish it before this fiscal year ends. So that's one of our requests tonight is, would you mind if we added those Buck Destin bathrooms onto the FY23 budget? Because here's the way I do budgeting. I have a lot of faith in what Lance calls zero-based budgeting. So each year, we start the slate fresh. If we budgeted a project and we encumbered it with a contract, that budget will continue forward until that contract is paid out. But if the funds were not encumbered with a contract, then they just fall down to the general fund, unassigned balance, or whatever fund, if they're committed or restricted money, right? And so then we don't have access to them unless we adopt them and budget again. So anyway, that's our one request. And that would decrease this addition to fund balance from $234,000. It would decrease that by $200,000. So that would be pretty close if we were to do that. But again, we have a very healthy fund balance. We are adding about $2 million to that fund balance. That's my projection for the end of this year. So there's some wiggle room without making us go bankrupt over the long term. The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to use fund balance for operating expenditures year over year, because operating expenditures are pretty much, they're not discretionary. You have your people, you don't want to be hiring and firing year over year, right? But when you have excess funding that you're bringing in above those operating, then you can use that, because it falls into the fund balance, you can use those for one-off capital projects. But again, like Mr. Destin says, you don't want to depend on that for your operating. But our operating our net operating is very healthy. So that's what our one request.
Well, seeing how we're on the capital budget discussion, especially in this particular case, other projects like the bathroom, stuff like that, pursuant to our last city council meeting where our crosstown connector turned into a linear park, I haven't seen anywhere where that 1.6 or $2 million potential expenditure is projected into the FY '23. Is that because we don't expect to get to that point till '24, '25? Or was that just not brought up? Because I think it was, the vote was real clear, that's the route we're going to take, and I think the estimates were anywhere from 800,000 to 1.6, which, being a boat guy, it's always 50% more and 30% longer, so I'm thinking 1.6 to 2.5 is the reality of the agreement type water management system for that linear park. And I don't see that there, because we've agreed to add the park to the crosstown connector, but it's not reflective in any of any of the capital outlays.
I would think
That's
that's
correct.
because the motion was not to build it, it was to do the engineering and then make a decision. That's right, so only the 40,000 was committed, nothing to build it, because that decision hasn't been made.
So is that why it wasn't reflective in this budget?
That's
In
correct.
anticipation?
That's correct. We did adjust the budgeted funding for Atkins to do the engineering for it, but we have not updated, but that will, at this moment in time, under the unfunded portion of our capital budget, there's a lot there for the crosstown connector. So we are seeking out additional funding from all kinds of sources to accomplish that.
On that correction there, Dewey, then if the council, we get the report back and we decide to continue with the linear park, would that just be budgeted into 2024? Is that
That would be what.
common sense wise, that's where it would be expected to take place?
Yeah, the question I wanted to ask Crystal, and you mentioned it, I think at the last workshop, that we projected the costs was going from 4.5 to 9, and I know that we're going to be looking everywhere for that money. Do we have any really, our arms around how we're going to do that? If we are successful in getting some more money, I'm sure most of those grants, we have to kick in some, so that's another 24, 25 expense we're going to have to come up with how we're going to do that, right?
Yes, that's correct. As soon as we get to the 90% plans, then I'll put a lot more effort into finding the funding and bringing you options for the funding sources. And as you know, our grants manager, Jeff Kozad, he's always searching. We believe that when you have a 90% complete plan, it's easier to bring that to different grantors, whether they be from different departments with the state or other funding sources.
I thought we were at 90%, other than the question about whether the pond was going to be underground or above ground. Are we not at 90% otherwise?
That is correct, so we're at 90% now. Depending on the level of revisions that they've got to make, that might put us back to 60%. So we'll have to see what revisions they make.
Okay, maybe I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Sorry, we are at the 90% at this point. Now, depending on the level of revisions that they make, as far as the undergrounding of the systems, that might put us back to 60%, depending on that effort.
With all due respect, I don't know how the question of whether the pond will be underground or above ground could put us back to 60%. We're at 90%. The only question is the pipes or not the pipes, and I don't understand how that would put us back to 60%. I guess we can wait and see, but I don't know how that's possible. Anyway, they'll
Given-
let us know within, 60 days now? So we'll
Yeah.
have the answer to that, but I don't think they're changing anything other than pipes underground or pond. As far as the rest of the roadway, we're not changing anything that I know of.
Mr. Braden?
More to that point, I guess we've spent over, $470,000 or $400,000 designing that road?
600,000.
600, yeah, so, I mean, that's the only way you make money is going back to 60%, starting all over again. That's insane. Buck Destin bathrooms, how much did we predict that was gonna cost?
Now we're predicting approximately 200,000. Last year, we thought it would be 135,000, which,
And that's to build a building with 2 bathrooms?
We've received 2 quotes, Councilor Braden. The first one, now this is a prefabricated building, so it'll show up on a truck, and we'll have to arrange for the crane and everything, and pour the foundation, establish the utilities and all that. The first quote was $200,000 for the building. And the second quote I've received is $87,000 for the building.
That sounds more realistic.
Yeah, but what we were going to do, and I've talked to Jeff and Crystal about this, is what we're going to do is we're going to put out an RFP. And it'd be kind of spell out exactly what we're looking for. I've talked to Lisa 100 times about this bathroom, but unfortunately, just put it out on the street and see what comes back to us. If we don't get the solicitation, we don't get this response from the solicitation, we still have these 2 quotes to go back on.
Okay. I asked that because I'm in the middle of building. We've already started the project, and the budget is $427,000. Move in, that's landscaped, everything. It's a 2,700 square foot, 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath house. 400, that's half of what that home's fixing to cost me for 2 bathrooms. So, I mean, that's one big problem that I have. And the other one, and I've always had the same issue since day one, is we put it out there like this, that we estimate that this bathroom is going to cost $200,000. 99.9% of the time, that's what the bid comes back at. Because they know we're willing to spend, or think it's going to spend $200,000, it's going to come back at close to $200,000. And I've witnessed it time and time and time again. I don't know how we got one at $86,000 unless we were projecting to be $50,000. But I just hate the fact, and always have, that we estimate a job to be X amount of dollars, and then we put it out for bid, and they always seem to come back, that I've seen, real close to that number. I just find it hard to believe that we're going to spend $200,000 on 2 bathrooms when I can build a 4-bedroom home for $427,000. That's all I have.
Maybe we ought to quit doing that. Just put it out for bid, this is what we want. You tell us how much it costs. Mr. City Manager, and then Mr. Bagby, and then we'll press on with Crystal's presentation. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that since if we don't get this in place by September 30, then that money drops into the fund balance that on the next budget that comes back to you, which will be on the 8th, during the hearing, which is technically my presentation to you as the balanced budget that I'm required to give to you. I will include that bathroom item in the next round, and if y'all want to vote it out, then that's okay. But if I don't have it in there, then that money is going to sink away. And I'll just say this, and I know you guys get sick of me talking about my park days, but that park I drive by 4 to 8 times a day, and it's got a lot of kids in there, and I think bathrooms is something that if we can do it, we should do it down there.
Yeah, so, which is what I thought, when you raise an issue like this, you're asking for our consensus. Should you put an RFP out? I'm for you doing that. I'm for you putting it in the budget. We're not voting, but, we can give you a consensus of, am I supportive of Buck Destin Park? Yes. So, that would be where I would be on this specific issue. And then we can hear from everybody. So you can get consensus, and I have another issue.
I agree, put it in the budget. I've seen those kids, I've seen them peeing in the bushes, okay? We need a bathroom there. We need it now, not next year. So yeah, put it in the budget.
That's my running path, and absolutely. In the morning, there's plenty of kids waiting for a bus. In the afternoon, they're all playing basketball.
So we don't need to spend $200,000 on
No,
bathrooms.
but,
RFP it.
yeah.
Yeah, we're
all
not
it
saying
was
200.
was to roll it and do an RFP. You know, I'll give you a different perspective. We're building a 2,700 square foot office space in front of our condo, and it's going to be $3 million. So, and it's going to have 2 bathrooms inside, thank God, because I'm going to need one. But my question on this, this sheet, is this additional renewal and replacement program funding of $1 million, $1,052,000, or is this, you're going to bring the total to $1,052,000?
No, this is the addition to the renewal and replacement funds so that we're
Okay.
able to accomplish all of the things
Okay.
that are in this budget.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that we weren't going to make that the total, because ours is $560,000 for 129 condo unit per year going in our reserve fund. So I thought, man, that's a little small.
Okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead, Crystal.
Yeah, so this is really this is all I wanted to present to you tonight. So, yeah, just to answer your question, so from the general fund, yes, we're adding to, let's see, the total expenditures next year is 2.3 million. So what you see on this slide is what we're adding to it so that there's enough balance in that fund to accomplish all of these projects, which does not, by the way, include the Port Coche. Sorry. No. Yep. So, yeah, so these are all the major points that I wanted to hit on tonight, and I really
I got some-
appreciate your,
Couple questions.
yes, so go
He
with the
said,
questions.
he said he's in the bathroom, so he said just to go ahead and go for it, so. And then there was some questions or comments earlier about items that we don't have on the budget because they're not already like executed or planned or whatever. So in regards to what we do have on the budget, we have things like, debt service for paying back a loan that we haven't even executed or planned. Is that backwards, putting it on the budget like that, or is that kind of a similar thing, or what?
No, the debt service for a loan that we don't have yet, that was just me doing the long-term planning and seeing what the bottom lines would look like and to see if we could handle it.
Gotcha.
That's part of it, but again, we will have a lot of discussions in regular council meetings before we actually put a bid out into the world for financing, and I got to make sure that all of the council members want to continue and make sure we have the timing correct on
Perfect.
these big capital projects that we might need those funds for.
The couple other, if y'all could just bear with me on this table, because I love the table. So, I requested some documents. I got one. Actually, I apologize. I got all the documents I requested. So thank y'all. For example, Buck Destin. Since we're talking about the bathrooms, we have a project for $125,000 to resurface a basketball court. And then I was comparing that to other resurfacing projects that we have going on, like at the community center, where I think it's like $80,000. But then I got the quote, which had today's date on it, so I'm not sure if it was literally today's date or if that was an accident, but it's like $30-something thousand to do the resurfacing. So first question is, where are we at with the resurfacing of the Buck Destin basketball court project for $125,000?
Lisa?
Yes. Where are we?
Well, compared to the $125,000 that we're budgeting for it.
Okay. So that's your new quote. That's an updated quote that you have today. Because I had an old quote, and since you asked for it, I asked them to requote it, and he did requote it today. So you're looking at the basketball resurfacing, which it hasn't been completed because we're waiting to do the restrooms, and it could be going into the basketball courts to tie into the sewer, okay? The other, what you're looking at is 300,000?
Oh, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
Hold on.
Okay, I got it, okay.
So, in this scenario then, Crystal, we have a quote that we received today for $38,000. So does that get adjusted on, I guess, the next run? Is that a $90,000 difference now that we just found? Is that how that works?
What, so I would get to, I didn't see that quote because
Okay.
I was wearing one of my other hats.
No, that's fine. It
most
was,
of
it
the
was
day.
last minute.
Yes, so, no, I would get, normally what happens, we have the budget, we put up the tentative budget. When we actually go to sign a contract with
Right.
who's chosen. We spend out that amount. The remaining amount that goes unspent either gets
Right.
transferred during the year to another project that you make a motion on to move it to another
Right.
project. Or in this instance, I could, if Lisa feels strongly that she'll be able to get that same sort of a quote when the bathrooms are in and she can actually put it in, then we could also reduce the budget this evening by that amount. And I'm just looking, and that was using general fund money in the R&R that was going to be transferred into the renewal and
Right.
replacement fund. So yes, that would add $85,000 to the fund balance if we did that. So I'll double check with the Michael Lisa team tomorrow to see if that's a prudent move.
I mean, I'm not sure about these guys, but I mean, if I got a quote for a project that I was expecting to be $125,000 and now it's $40,000, I feel like we would adjust the budget, but.
Yeah.
The library, and the librarian here, thank you so much for being here. We have $50,000 architectural design that I think we talked about because of space and things like that. Does that interfere with, I mean, overall at the library, when I was putting the numbers together, I mean, it's like $300,000 worth of stuff going on over there on this budget. So like carpet and painting inside. Are we now going to also have an architect redesign things and going to tear up carpet at the same time, or are those completely separate, not going to touch each other projects?
Wen can speak more to this, but the bottom line is we need an architectural design to plan for the future. I just know that the children's room that they have right now is not adequate and they don't have enough space for the students who like to stay there. But Wen, could you speak to that a little bit more?
What are we looking at architecturally hiring somebody?
Hello.
Hey.
Yes, the room that they call the Willie Mae room, when it was designed, it does not go all the way up to the ceiling, and it's kind of this dark, dim room, and you can fit, 15, 20 kids in there and their parents. It's very small, so we have outgrown that room. And so that takes up, a big section of space within the library. And you can ask Mr. Michael, he's looked at, what can we do, but because of the design of the library, it is not something that's easy to fix. Some of the other areas are our computer lab was set up, I guess, probably 20 years ago, and it is not being utilized like it needs to be utilized. The lighting in there is not right for that room, and also it has kind of the old styled desks in there where the monitor leans down into the desk, and so the room really needs to be repurposed and updated. And we also have an area, as we've learned with COVID, we need to have some outdoor library spaces so that people can be outside and get some fresh air in case we ever have to close the library up again. So we have a covered patio area back there that I'm wanting to add some things to, some lighting, some fans, some seating, so that it could be utilized as, more of a meeting space and, a gathering space outside.
Awesome.
So that's what that's
Right.
for.
And those all, and I heard about some of that, and I've been in those small room before, and
Yes.
I'm excited about a lot of that. I guess my concern is too, sometimes you see businesses, restaurants, whatever, or, government agencies. So you're wanting to spend $125,000 on carpet, right? So I'm assuming that's carpet for the whole library?
Correct. The
So-
carpet that's in there hasn't been replaced since
Right.
the building was built.
So I would just hope that when we replace all the carpet in the entire building, that then when we go and redesign rooms, that we didn't just put new carpet in there, now we're tearing it up type of thing. I would hate to
No.
see that happen.
Yeah, all that'll be coordinated. One additional complicating factor to the carpet is moving all of those books
Desk books.
and being able to
my
lay
gosh,
the carpet.
yes.
So I'm sure there'll be some labor involved in that.
Sure, okay. And then the last question, and Michael, this might be for you anyways, is the community center parking lot. Yeah, wrap it up, but I'm sorry. We
I
have,
was looking at the other council members.
So we have two line items to mill and surface community center parking lot, one for 80 and one for 20. So I guess we're planning on resurfacing and remilling that community center parking lot this year?
Yes, sir. The 20, and forgive me if I misspeak, may be for the sheriff's substation and the parking in the rear.
Okay. Gotcha. So I would assume that's a pretty accurate quote then, based on getting this stuff.
Yeah, based on the last numbers that we did have.
Right.
But Michael, didn't you say that we're not going to be able to do any
We might
paving?
not, yeah. But we're still planning.
Well, I have been in contact with a separate paving contractor and have forwarded him the information about the projects that we'd like to see happen, and he's preparing a quote for me and getting back to me.
Okay. No, that was it. Before I was comparing that resurfacing to other resurfacing things, and it just didn't really match up very well. So, but now that we've kind of changed the resurfacing of some other stuff, it makes more sense. So that's all I have and on that. And thank you and all the department heads and everybody and staff, all of the pages, the additional bullet points that specifies why certain things. I mean, all of it. I mean, it truly does help. The table, the color coding. I mean, I know some people might get annoyed that I'm asking certain questions, but this is what I want to do here tonight. So thank everybody for their patience. Right, but so thank you all, though, staff and everybody that has worked hard on this, and sorry for possibly changing here in the next couple months. So
Thank you, Crystal.
a couple times.
Thank you, Crystal, so much. There's no public here, so we're not going to have any public comments. Bobby, before we go, because your face is not on the screen, are you good? Are you have anything?
I'm good. I appreciate everyone's time, and this has been great. I've got my own notes, so in the briefing, I definitely want to go through and kind of comb some of the thoughts and ideas I have, and per project. So that's not this place. So nothing on the subject matter that we have tonight.
Thank you. Go ahead. Okay.
I mean, tonight is for projects. If you want to cut one, or you want to see if there's consensus to add one or bring one out of 24 and 23, now's the time to do that. So if you got a project.
So particularly, it was more so just kind of final vision of what these look like. We're kind of piecemealing, not piecemeal, but we're getting into the details of the paving. So for Buck Destin example, the paving versus the bathroom versus the resurfacing of the courts. Is one pickleball? Is one tennis courts? So I guess my overall question and concern and I guess excitement is how they all play together, and do we have a full, complete concept for each one all the way through, and just kind of getting the visuals of what that looks like. And so in particularly, the projects in there are good. I'm just excited to see how all these individual projects come together to form a unique space for each one of these, from the library to Buck Destin.
All right. Crystal, thank you very much, and we'll see you all Monday, a couple days. Have a great weekend. I'm going to Kentucky. Meeting adjourned.